What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. I'm Miko, once again joined here by Morgan Cannon. Morgan, once again, we're back to do a little bit more film breakdown, this time of the Lions versus Packers game that happened last Thursday, with the Lions coming out with a big time division win over the Packers in that one, 34-20. And you got a couple plays here that really highlight just how dominant, the Lions were in this game. Obviously, it shows in the score, but there's so many things that happened in that game on the field that we really just got to dive into.
Yeah, it was difficult to pick, just a few, right? Well, I have a lot in my article on Pride of Detroit if you want like a more thorough breakdown there of more plays. But yeah, it was tough just to pick a few for our weekly YouTube segment.
Yeah,
It's a
so
good
we
game.
got we got 5 clips for you guys in this week's video. So we're gonna start this one off. Again, starting off with the defense, because once again, this defense had another really strong performance um, against this Green Bay Packers offense. And so we got to start with the man up front, Aiden Hutchinson, getting some big time pressure and generating a really impressive sack uh, for the Lions in this game.
Yeah, this was Green Bay's first offensive possession after Jared Goff threw the interception on the Lions' first possession. So this was big. They ended up getting off the field, held Green Bay to 3 points. Felt like a really big win after that early pick. But they run what we call a TE stunt here, or a tackle edge stunt. So the tackle is listed first. This is Aiden McNeil because he's the penetrator, and then Aiden Hutchinson, the end, is listed second in the name because he's the looper. So you'll see Aleem get off the ball here, does a really good job at just running at the inside shoulder of 50, engages him. And at that point, Miko, you mentioned it before the show, Hutch was able to churn up enough like of a head of steam just to walk back 76. I think that's running right back into the lap of Jordan Love, and ends up being a sack for Hutch. Both Aleem was there too, which is really impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say this is what the Lions need a lot from not just Hutch, but also Aleem. Aleem, again, being that guy who almost kind of, like you said, gets this, started by being able to really kind of occupy two, blockers for at least a split second. And that gives, Hutch all the advantage he needs to really be able to push the pocket and get into the lap of Jordan Love here. So, no, I love this for this defense. I think that's been one of the biggest differences in the last 2 games, with this defensive line really stepping up in their pass defense, or being able to, again, turn those pressures into sacks, is just the fact that you're getting guys from the interior, really, like, pushing the pocket and giving these edge guys a little more room to breathe, on these pass rush situations.
Yeah, and it gives the quarterback nowhere to step up, right? That's happened several times already this year as the Lions have gone on their little sack run over the last couple weeks. Two things, though, I want to highlight is the Packers did a pretty good job of picking that up and
Yeah.
communicating and passing off that game. But then at the same time, it just didn't matter. They ran a lot of them, and yeah, it was just a impressive when Hutch and Aleem are eating, because it's going to be tough. Like on passing downs, if you line up Hutch and Aleem on the same side, you're kind of in a quandary at this point, because Hutch is quickly, elevating his name into the elite edge conversation. I think he leads all edge rushers and quarterback pressures right now. And then Aleem, the last couple weeks, has put together some really dominant performances. So I'm excited to see if they can continue cooking, because that's a nightmare for opposing offenses.
Yeah, and it goes back to something that, like, I've been saying specifically about Aleem's, like, in particular, is just him needing to be able to be that disruptor in the middle, like you're saying, being able to at least create pressure in the middle so that the quarterbacks don't have anywhere to step up to. Because in these last few weeks, and even in the game that they have coming up this week, they've played some more mobile quarterbacks, some guys that could technically escape the pocket, but these guys being able to create, pressure in the middle, being able to still, hold the edges pretty strong, has really gave a lot of these opposing offenses, big time fits.
Yeah, there have been a couple instances when it looks like the entire Lions defensive line has had met at the quarterback at once, and just one of them, whether it was Hutch or Charles Harris or Benito Jones or Bugs or whoever, just got the sack. So yeah, it's really encouraging, Miko, like you said. And they're rushing the passer like Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell want them to, where it's a, an envelope, right? Like they're enveloping the quarterback
Yeah.
from all sides, and it leaves them with nowhere to go. Like it happened. Jordan Love's a mobile guy. He's an athletic kid, and there's just nowhere to go for him several times this past week, excuse me.
Absolutely. But that's the defensive side of the football, right? There were still plenty of like big time plays being made on the offensive side. And again, from guys that we expect big time plays to come from. One of those being Amon-Ra St. Brown with the Lions, helping the Lions get their first touchdown on Thursday night.
Yeah, this is a beauty. So this is something that Amon-Ra talked about. I believe it was after the game, where they knew that the Packers corners, in particular, Rasul Douglas, would jump on this. And man, did he jump! It didn't help that he slipped, but
I mean, yeah,
yeah.
like
Go ahead.
he bit really hard on this. I mean, you can see it better from this angle, just how hard he bites on this short route that like, or this curl like action that Amon-Ra runs. It's a beauty.
Yeah, and I think Douglas said like they know this is one of the Lions' go-to concepts out of the formation that they were in. With I believe they had two backs on the field because Jameer and Montgomery are on the field, but they're split out as receivers. So it's something they love to run. And in Rasul Douglas's head, he probably thought, "Man, I'm about to get a pick," and then
Yeah.
really quickly, as his butt probably hit the ground, he's thought, "Oh no, actually, I'm not getting a pick." So.
It reminds me of it kind of reminds me of that highlight with Cam Newton when he was with the Panthers, and like was it, I
Yep.
can't remember if it was against the Packers or someone else, but they were like, oh, like they were trying to call out the play, like, oh, because he's been watching film. And
Mhm.
Cam's like, oh, you've been watching film. He's like, watch this.
Yep, and he got him. I know exactly what mic'd up moment you're talking about, Miko. That was great. Loved Cam Newton. So much fun to watch. But yeah, this is definitely one of those situations. Rasul Douglas thought he saw one thing, and Johnson was a couple steps ahead of him.
And like you and I were having a really good interest, we are having an interesting conversation again about Goff in this play, whether or not like his pump fake sells this or if it was just like nerves. But one way or another, like again, you got to give a lot of credit to your quarterback in this situation because even though this is wide open, like sometimes your excitement and things like that cause passes like these to sail. And Goff does a really good job of just kind of putting it right on him, so that this can be an easy touchdown.
Yeah, and you can like Goff. We were talking about it before. The little subtle hip, you know, twitch he gives to St. Brown as he runs this stop route here, and I'm sure that helped sell it a little bit better to Douglas. And yeah, man, you're spot on, Miko. This is just a good play design by Ben Johnson, good game planning, knowing a defense's tendencies and trying to think like they would be thinking. That's really how you get inside the head of your opponent is like, okay, what are they thinking here? What can they try to exploit? And you try to get ahead of that.
Absolutely. But so you have plays like this where, like you're saying, right? It's offense, beating the defense. It's good, play calling and knowing tendencies to be able to get a big time play from your offense. But then you have plays like this from Josh Reynolds. And I don't know if you can put that in the same category, Morgan.
No, this is just trusting your guy and allowing them to make a play. So here, pre-snap, Goff has identified they're in man. He knows they only have a single high safety, and he knows he has Josh Reynolds lined up against 37. Forgive me, I don't know the name off the top. But yeah, he just cuts it loose. Reynolds gets a good outside release. He has a lot of real estate from where he is to the boundary. So gives Goff some room to make that throw, and he just drops it in the bucket. Really, it's good coverage. The corner's in phase the entire time. It's just my guy, Goff said, my guy's better than your guy, and he threw it up to him.
I was gonna say this is great coverage, right? Like if you're,
Yep.
if you're going back to the defensive huddle, like you just kind of have to shoulder shrug on this one because it's like, dude, like I'm there, But Josh Reynolds, like you said, does a good job extending, on that offhand, being able to secure the one-handed catch. And Goff basically is just like, yo, like I'm just gonna trust that my guy's gonna pull this in one way or another. It's either like he's going to get this or this is going to be an incompletion, and that's, you know, we talked about this a couple weeks ago about Goff making this maturation in his, in some of his throws of like making more of these gutsy throws that we don't really believe that he would have made a couple years ago, but he's definitely kind of stepping into that more so this season.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that back up, Nico, because yeah, this takes trust. This takes some guts, whatever you want to call it. Because this is essentially a 50-50 ball, but in Goff's head, like you said, Miko, it's more of like a 90-10 ball. Either Josh is going to get it or it's going to hit the turf. So yeah, impressive placement from Goff. He had a couple of those like he threw against the Packers.
Yeah.
He was kind of shifting his feet around. I think Dan Campbell said that too, and the pass just sailed on him. And it wasn't a great decision in the first place before the pass even sailed. So yeah, it's been cool to see him continue, where he left off last year. And mistakes are going to be made. Like he's going to throw picks here and there, especially if he's pushing the ball down the field like he has been.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's more. I want to see more explosives from the Lions offense, just because yes, these drives that they get lately that are like 7, 8, 10, 11 plays that take a ton of time off the clock. Those are all well and good. But here and there, it's nice to score on 2 or 3 or 1 play, 2 plays, 3 plays, just because it's a quick strike ability. And you soften those defenses up.
Yeah, and if nothing else, right, you keep those defenses like guessing, right? They don't think that like, okay, we can just kind of sit on routes, and you can again kind of lull guys to sleep, kind of like they did earlier in that drive against Rasul Douglas of just guys expecting you guys to kind of dink and dunk your way down the field, but still being able to take your shots here and there. And obviously, like all the rage has been that JMO's back and at least going to be getting worked back into the rotation. Having a guy like him available to you for some of those explosives really just is going to open up the offensive playbook, for them.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to see, I don't think it's going to be this weekend against Carolina, but I'll be excited once they get the ball rolling a little bit more with JMO, when they can get JMO and Jameer lined up out there at the same time as, St. Brown and David Montgomery and Sam Laporta, right? That's a tough,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Because you get JMO rolling, you got 2 field stretchers, because Jameer is a field stretcher. Obviously, he's not as tall as JMO, and
Right.
but he's someone who can dust even a pretty fast corner, right? Just leave him. So
Absolutely.
that goes on, and then you still have to respect the run because the Lions have an elite offensive line, and David Montgomery's looking good. So yeah, it's going to be fun, man. I'm excited to see where this offense can go if things keep moving the right way.
For sure. All right, Morgan. So, of course, moving on to the next play, for a fact that like when we do these, we don't do these just to gush over all the highlights, because being honest, like people could honestly just search on YouTube and find a highlight reel and enjoy those. We do try to actually like break down some of the things that are happening on the field. Some of those things are mostly good, but we do have some miscues as well that we have to take a look at. And you found a perfect example of this. Once again, looking at the defense and just once again finding some miscommunication between the secondary and how that leads to points for Green Bay.
Yeah, just you can see right here pre-snap. Ifatu Melifanu circled in black, Jerry Jacobs circled in white. Iffy is going to communicate something to Jerry. Jerry hand signals to him back, and then just I don't know what happens. It was definitely a miscommunication though, because you can watch Iffy at the end of the play kind of jumping up and down as if to say, Jerry, we just talked about this. Why did you do that? And then Jerry at the very last second too tries to run towards Watson, but it's way too late at that point.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit with the Amon-Ra play, right? Again, doing film study and having an understanding of down and distance and understanding what's possibly coming in a situation like this. I'm with you. It does seem like if he has a much understanding of what's about to happen. You look at the way that he plays this coverage. The minute he sees Christian Watson kind of duck underneath, like he more so is waiting for the slant route to come, which I believe this is Romeo Doubs. He's waiting to pick up Romeo Doubs on this switch. And Jerry I'm so curious on what the communication was, because Jerry acknowledges it and does the opposite in this situation.
Yeah, it's like he just panicked maybe, but I'm pretty sure the conversation went something like Ifatu saying, hey, if they run a rub here, switch it.
Right.
And then if Jerry said, okay, so the only thing I can maybe assume is Jerry misheard Iffy, or I don't know, because yeah, we'll never know for sure. But yeah, you can tell Iffy's doing one thing and Jerry's just playing man and kind of runs into Iffy and then has to at the very last second turns around but it's over at that point. So yeah, this is what gets Green Bay up 27 or gets the score to 27-11 after the 2-point conversion.
Yeah, and again, it's not the biggest deal in the world in terms of, again, how this game eventually plays out, but when we're talking about just, doing these videos to highlight the things that we're seeing on the field and highlighting things that, could, in theory, swing momentum or just, have the game go in another direction. The Lions were in very much control of this game and, very much so keeping Green Bay out of the end zone. And you have a situation like this where, again, you kind of give life or you at least make a team feel like, okay, we can start to put some points up. And it's simply due to the fact that guys are just not on the same page with a switch.
Yeah, and like you said, Miko, at the beginning, we do this to talk about the entire picture of things. So Jerry did have a good game. Obviously, the 2 interceptions were nice. He had the tipped pass interception, and then the one where Love miscommunicated with whoever that was running into the end zone.
Yeah.
So, but both were big plays, and I'm not, this play doesn't diminish those plays at all. But yeah, we just wanted to highlight something that I noticed on film, and you could clearly see by Melifonwu's reaction that he was like, "Oh man, like we just talked about this." So
Well, and we also talked about, again, in preparation of this, like, it also shows us a level of maturation on Iffy's part to be able to make those types of calls. And because, again, we forget that he's filling in for Kirby Joseph in this situation. And but even still, like, he's clearly done his preparation to understand, like, hey, this is what we're supposed to do. He understands that he's supposed to be communicating with his corner to, initiate that switch. And so for a guy that, again, is really only in his second year of playing safety after being drafted by this regime, it's a good thing for Iffy. Obviously, they get a touchdown, but it's at least shows a sign of maturation on his part to at least understand his role and his responsibility, when filling in for Kirby in this game.
yeah, it shows. You're right, Miko. It comes, he's come a long way in terms of understanding the defense and being able to take that understanding and put it into, his on the field play. So it's cool. It speaks to the depth that they've quietly built in the secondary, right? Like, because they were down both starting safeties the last 2 weeks,
Yep.
and Tracy Walker and Ifatu Melifonwu would be starting most likely on a lot of other organizations right now, just to put it lightly.
I was gonna say
So,
there's a couple teams winless that would probably love to have
oh,
some
for
upgrades
sure.
at safety right now. Uh,
112%, sir.
another player though that we talked about earlier in the stream or in this video, that once again has been making some big strides and making some improvements in his game is Alim McNeil. And here's another really good example of Alim again having back-to-back weeks, getting his second sack of the season, and really just again being a wrecking ball in the middle, to be able to get to Jordan Love here.
Yeah, like you said, Miko, second week in a row of Aleem being a difference maker, right? So this is on Green Bay's sixth possession of the game, excuse me, in the second half. And right before this play, that literally the snap before, Aleem had a TFL, just shot the gap and was basically untouched on his way to, I think it was AJ Dillon. So big loss. And then this down, second and long, he gets the sack here and just attacks that outside shoulder. And we talked about this before we went back on to Miko, but you can kind of see Hutch here. This is what we talk about when we talk about rush lanes and rush integrity. We don't think this is a game that they're running. It's just, Aleem gets really wide and Hutch sees that. And he's like, okay, I just need to jump back over here in this lane in case Love wants to take off. Bugs does a good job of closing it down too, right there. But yeah, this is good rush cohesion. They're doing a good job of maintaining lane integrity. Excuse me. And this is what the result is. It's a team game, but then individuals get sacks, right? So guys like Aleem and Hutch are reaping the benefits.
No, yeah, like you said, it's definitely a team game. Guys have their roles and their responsibilities, but when you're given your opportunities to win one-on-ones or when you're given opportunities to make plays, like, you have to do that. And going back to what you're saying about, us not believing that this was necessarily a stunt, it's really based off of like this shot right here, basically looking at like how far Hutch gets into his rush before he finally decides to loop back. when we looked at the play earlier where Hutch got his first sack and they ran a stunt type motion, that stunt comes much more quickly. Like he allows Aleem to go ahead of him, like you were explaining. He allows Aleem to engage both blockers before he finally decides to loop over. In this one, like Hutch is very much rushing the outside before he finally decides to loop back around. And I think, or we both think, like this is because Aleem took an outside rush move. So they're very close to running into one another before Hutch finally like puts the brakes on and decides like, okay, I'm just gonna fill on the other side.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Miko. Like if Hutch continued to bend the edge there and tried to attack the outside shoulder of 63, there's potentially a giant, lane for Jordan Love to just escape out of. So I'm hopefully, like we're right, and Hutch is displaying good awareness here, and this could be something that him and Aleem discussed, between snaps, right? Like Aleem might have said, "Hey, I'm going to attack this outside shoulder here, and if I get too wide, jump back in so we don't get, so we don't get burned." Um,
Yeah.
yeah, this is big, man. If Aleem, we talked about this before we went back on to Miko, but if Aleem can continue to be this kind of difference maker, you put offenses in a really tough position by lining up Aleem at the three technique and then Hutch at the edge, right? Because who are you going to double team? Are you going to just slide protection to the right? It's just a million. You just have to. It's something that the offensive coordinator has to plan for especially on passing downs.
Yeah, and I think the fact that like they're now working Aleem into more of these stunt type motions again gives offensive coordinators something to have to worry about because I feel like last year this was like specifically a John Kaminsky thing and maybe a Josh Pascal thing when he was healthy as well. But now that you're getting Aleem into the mix as well, again, you look at that formation where they have Hutch on the outside, then it's Aleem, then it's Isaiah Buggs, and then it's John Kaminsky, and then Jack Campbell's playing the other like outside, Sam linebacker position. That for an offensive line probably screams like, okay, they're going to probably try to like push the pocket from the middle, or they're going to probably just try to play run defense. And then you get a defensive tackle that's running a stunt, and it can quickly just kind of throw things, awry. And again, it allows you to get those one-on-one matchups and allows guys to be able to win their one-on-ones, like Aleem does here and able to get a sack.
Yeah, man. Jeremy pointed this out actually. It was Tuesday morning when I posted my film study, and he was like, "One of those sacks the other day." This is a Dan Campbell quote. One of those sacks we had the other day, it was actually Max. It was him doing exactly what we talked about on his stunt game. He ricochets off the tackle, and Hutch loops inside, and the quarterback's got nowhere to go. And Aleem actually ended up getting the sack out of it, just trying to really set up Hutch for a sack, and he got his. So it was just like Mac wasn't even really designed to get there, but he
Yeah.
got there, and he did the job of chipping the tackle away and slipping by him. So we need more of that. We need that on a weekly basis, and we will be cooking with some hot oil.
And again, that's something that like I think this defensive line is starting to get their confidence. They're starting to get into a rhythm with each other. They're starting to get some healthy bodies back. Julian Okwara being activated off of IR. So you're going to start to get a few more, pieces back, and that's really going to make this defensive line even more dangerous when you're talking about being able to run stunts or being able to blitz or whatever the case may be. And the Lions are once again in a favorable situation where they get another young quarterback that hasn't really been playing his best football, hasn't adjusted necessarily to the NFL speed yet. And so it's going to be really interesting to see if this defensive line, with a few more days of rest, can continue that trajectory that they've been on and get after, Bryce Young even more this upcoming Sunday.
Man, I don't know if I'd want to. I know it's the Panthers. It's like anything can happen, especially in the NFL. We saw that with the Cardinals beating the Cowboys, right? Like
Yeah.
we can't, the Lions can't be taking the Panthers lightly. But at the same time, it's going to be tough to beat Bryce Young this weekend, man, because I can almost guarantee you that Aaron Glenn is going to throw the kitchen sink at that young man.
He hasn't handled pressure well. Like, and
No.
Morgan and I are going to get into that film study hopefully this week as well, where we'll take a couple looks at a couple things that the Panthers have been doing. But I mean, you and I watched the Falcons game, and that young man does not handle pressure very well.
No, sir.
So, but Yo, that's gonna do it for another film breakdown. With Morgan and I again taking a look at some of the various plays that took place during the Lions and Green Bay game. Let us know in the comment section below. Again, what do you guys think of some of these plays? If there are a certain play that you know think about or that you've been thinking about from Thursday that really stands out to you, let us know in the comment section below. And like Morgan said, he has a full film breakdown over on prideofdetroit.com that you guys can go check out. I'll make sure to link that in the description, but definitely go check that out if you're looking for even more film breakdowns and even more analysis on some of the things that took place Thursday night. You can find all of that over in Morgan's article. And last but not least, you guys already know we are so close to 10,000 subscribers over here on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed, please do us the biggest favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. All of those things help this channel out so much. And once you do those things, you'll be notified anytime we upload any more videos, any more film breakdowns, or anything of the like over here on YouTube. So once again, I'm Miko. He's Morgan. Thanks you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll see you guys in the next one.